Welcome to Adeptus On Air, the show where we examine how individuals and companies make decisions that drive their business and personal success. Each week, we connect with notable professionals who pull back the curtain on the industries that Adeptus has been on the cutting edge of for the last 30 years, including music, sports, and entertainment, as well as new emerging markets.
Welcome to Adeptus on Air. I'm Mike Hoffman, your host for today, bringing you a candid conversation with my guest, Cody Calafiore. How you doing, Cody?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on as the first episode. It's like an honor. I feel great.
It's not the first episode, but it's the first episode that I'm hosting.
First episode that you're hosting. I appreciate you having me as your first guest.
Yeah, so you are my first guest. So I have watched some podcasts recently just to get a feel for the hosting. And full disclosure, those have been mostly your podcasts. So if you've done a good job, I'll do a good job. And if you haven't, well, this just might be a disaster from the beginning. But
my best advice about a podcast, right?
What's that?
It's just having a conversation.
We're just having a conversation.
You're great at that, Mike.
I'm good. And full disclosure, I talk to Cody once every few weeks. Cody's a client of mine. We spent 4 hours together yesterday golfing, sharing a cart. I won't say who was the better golfer, but I will say I was the worst golfer. So we'll leave it at that. But we had a good time, got to chat a little bit.
I was not a good golfer, just for everybody listening. But there is one thing that we did, and we had a good time.
We had a good time, and that's the important thing. The best advice Cody gave me yesterday, I'll say this before we get going, is after the first hole, I told him my score, and he says, I think it's going to be a better day if we don't keep score. And all the pressure was gone, and we just had a good time.
We just had a good time. We didn't count how many balls we lost.
No, because that was.
We didn't count how many strokes over.
Because there was quite a few again.
And so we just were out there to have a good time in the fall, because any day that you can golf in the fall is a good day.
Yep, beautiful weather, nice course, good friends. Yeah. So it was a good time.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know Cody kind of came into the public eye after 2 appearances on the CBS reality show, Big Brother. His first was back in Big Brother 16, I believe.
Correct.
What year was that?
That was 2014.
2014. And then he returned in the summer of COVID for Big Brother All-Stars, where he took home the top prize of $500,000. So talk to me, Cody. Obviously, your plan when you went to college wasn't to become a reality star. So talk to me. You went to college. What was your major? What were you doing? And what was your objective kind of when you got out? And how did your life kind of shift into where it is now?
It's so funny that you say that, because I was so far, like, the last thing on my mind was to do reality TV at all, because back when I graduated college, I graduated Temple University in 2013 with a business administration degree with a focus in marketing. And so coming out, reality television at the time was, for me, it was the real world. And there was this negative stigma around reality television, where if you go on reality TV, maybe some businesses wouldn't want to hire you, and it could impact you in a negative way when trying to find a job. So that was the last thing I was trying to do. My first focus was soccer. And then my second focus was just getting my degree, getting a 9-to-5 job, and going to work.
Because you one athlete, correct? Like, you played soccer at Temple.
Correct. So I played soccer at Temple. I started at Monmouth, transferred over to Temple, and then I had a chance to play with the Columbus Crew. They took me from school because that's how the MLS season starts. It starts in January. And so I had an opportunity to go to, we were down in Florida at the ESPN complex, and I had my preseason down there. Unfortunately, I completely destroyed my ankle in one of our preseason games, tore 2 ligaments, and you find out quickly how much of a piece of meat you are. And if that piece of meat isn't good, how quickly you get thrown away.
Sure. And
so I was right back to school. Thankfully, the business school was very gracious in allowing me back because there's periods in your capstone where if you miss a certain number of classes, you fail it, and you need your capstone to be able to graduate from the business school. They gave me a little bit of leeway because of the circumstances. So I was able to get back and get my degree. So I was very thankful for that. And so it just was, it was crazy, because at 22 years old, you're just, I don't know. I was still trying to find my way, quite frankly.
At that age.
Yeah, right. And so I was just trying to find my way. I was happy to be back at school with my friends and getting to enjoy my senior year with no soccer really on my mind anymore.
So you graduate, you get your degree at Temple.
Get my degree at Temple, and I go right to work. I was working on the weekends as a host slash dancer for bar and bat mitzvahs, very high end bar and bat mitzvahs in New York City. Like we had Malcolmore at one of the bar mitzvahs, one of the bat mitzvahs
Wow.
actually. Yeah, so these were like really high end events in the city, up in upstate New York. And then during the week, I was working for ADP in their small business division. Any businesses, any companies with 0 to 50 employees, I would try to kind of, it was ultimately at the time, I was like door to door.
Yeah.
And I was going to different small businesses and trying to sell them on ADP services, which was kind of like a dialed down service that ADP was using for all these, Fortune 500 companies that we can now offer to businesses with 50 employees or lower, where we would take the payroll, we would take care of their taxes. We offered some HR for these companies. And so that was my job, was to sell this to companies under 50 employees in my territory. Um, yeah, so I was working 7 days a week, and out of nowhere, one of the parties I was working in New York City, a person that was working this event saw me interacting with the kids, and he was a photo booth manager, and he said to me, he goes, "Hey, listen, I do some casting for this show called Big Brother. I don't know if you've ever heard of it." Now, for me, my father is a avid Big Brother fan.
Mhm.
And so I was really excited about that, but it really wasn't something that I was interested in pursuing until I had the conversation with my dad. And he was like, "You can always do what you're doing right now. You can go on the show. And when you come back, you can get a job in sales. And this is probably going to help you with the job that you're doing with the hosting.
Mhm.
So why not go for it? You're young, you'll be able to do it, and go for it." So I put in for it and wasn't really expecting, excuse me, I wasn't really expecting anything. And next thing I know, there's a camera crew coming out to Howell, New Jersey to film me and film a package for the show, which ultimately I knew was, wow, I think I'm actually on the show. I think they're
Right.
going to take me right now.
So, and for those of you who don't know what Big Brother is basically like Indoor Survivor. And what I mean by Indoor Survivor is, 16, depending on the year, 16 strangers go into a house for potentially up to 3 months, depending on how far they go, totally cut off from the outside world, compete in competitions, and so forth. Vote one person out a week, last person standing. So
Yeah.
in Cody's first season, Cody made it to the final two, took home the second place prize, which was what, 50,000 that year?
50,000. Yeah.
Which was like $50,000. So again, talking about the real world, Cody was basically disconnected from the real world for how many days was that season?
It was, I think my first season was 97 days.
Plus, you're in isolation beforehand, right? Yeah.
Correct.
So in total,
I was
probably
gone for like a total of over 100 days. It was like
100
105,
days.
I think. Yeah.
So that's 100 days when you're kind of disconnected from family, friends, your professional life. And you not only did it once, you then did it 6 years later again
Right.
when you took home the prize. What's it like being, because I can say if I don't have my phone for a few hours, I'm like, oh my God, what am I missing? Is anyone calling me? Things like that. What's it like for you just being disconnected from everything important to you for that long a time?
It is very difficult, and it's a huge adjustment because you almost take for granted some of those little things like, oh, I'm just gonna, sorry. Um, it's a huge adjustment because you take for granted some of the things that you're just used to, where it could be something as small as watching TV.
Mhm.
You just want to disconnect. So you want to watch TV and you want to be distracted by whatever's on the television. You want to give a call to a family member. You want to give a call to a friend to like bounce stuff off of them. You're ultimately dealing with everything yourself now. And that has added stress levels to it because depending on how you are in your real life, you may not be doing that all that often. And it depends on what you're leaving back at home. Like the first time, it was different. I was single. I left my family after just being away at college. And
Mhm.
so I was 23 years old, and it was not a huge adjustment because I was there having a great time. I was like, this is such a cool experience. The second time was much more difficult. I'd been in a very long relationship with my girlfriend, Christy. My family was going through a lot. We're in the middle of a global pandemic. Different things were going on with my family that were weighing on me drastically with my grandfather, my aunt. And so there was a lot of different things that I left that I was worried about back at home.
Yeah.
And so it is very difficult because there's no communication at all. Like I cannot go to the production and say, "Hey, I want to hear if everything's okay. I want to know like how this person's doing. Maybe can you get them a message?" And they will maybe tell you, "Oh yeah, we'll get that to them," but that doesn't necessarily
Right.
always translate. They may not be able to do that because they have to put it through a bunch of different people to be like, "Okay, we can get this message out to their family." Because there are 24/7 live feeds that are on at all times on Big Brother. So if I really wanted to, I could just talk to the camera. Now, you don't always know if the camera's on you. So a message that you want to get to your family may not get to your family.
Right.
So it is very difficult to go into that house and not think of what's going on the outside. And the first time I was very my mental state was pretty sound. I didn't really have a lot of stress thinking about the outside world. The second time, it was brutal for me. It took me like a good 3 weeks,
Well, I
which in
believe
this
when we talked
game,
about this offline, I believe your objectives both times were different. I think the first
completely different.
time your objective was great experience, get on TV, have some fun.
Yep,
Second time was I'm not going if I'm not going to win. And
exactly.
you said I'm not going. I'm not going. I had the experience already. If I'm going to leave my girlfriend, I'm going to leave my family. You know, I'm coming home with $500,000. So
I want to come home with an amount of money that could extremely benefit my life moving forward in the state that I was in. I was 29 years old when I went on the second time
yeah,
with a girlfriend that I'd been with for 5 years. And
yeah,
so it's a completely different situation when you're going on the second time. I have different objectives, different goals for coming out. And
yeah,
especially in the time that we were in where everything shut down that I was doing. And after the first time, I had gone the route of, okay, I'm not going to go back to my 9 to 5 job. I'm not going to go back to a structured income where I know what I'm making every 2 weeks. I know what my income is. I know what I have to cover. I know my bills. The second time, I was an entrepreneur. I was doing real estate. I was coaching soccer. And when the pandemic hit, my income stream stopped completely.
uh-huh,
There was no money coming in for me. And so it adds that why the reason why I went. I was like, I need to go just in case a situation like this happens. I don't want to be in the situation that I'm
yeah,
in right now. So it was a lot going back on the second time, but it for me the first time, like you, similar to what you described, it was an experience the first time I went on. The second time it was business. I was
yeah.
not going there for
It
any
was
other
pretty much
reason. Exactly.
yeah,
It was a business trip with $500,000 attached at the end,
yeah,
but there is so many hurdles that I had to get over in order to get to that
yeah,
$500,000.
yeah.
So,
And not talking game at all, as Cody mentioned, he had some illnesses in the family. He actually did get an outside communication, which is very rare in the game. He actually got a letter in the middle of the game from his family indicating that one of his grandparents had actually passed away when he was away.
yeah,
And I can only imagine what that's like when you can't hug your family and you can't be with your family and you're doing it. At that point, the people in the house are family, but they're family to an extent. They're also people that are lying to you to play a game.
right.
So, that's who you're using for a support system. And, I remember watching that. It was heartbreaking, just to know that you're doing that, without your family. But all ends well, because you achieved your objective and you came back, and so forth. So
Right.
you come back and now you're getting a lot of publicity, you're getting a lot of press, and obviously, in addition to the money. What's your approach? Like, how are you saying to yourself? And you kind of did it a little bit before because you'd filmed some movies in between the first and the second one. But what was your business approach in terms of, all right, how am I going to leverage this into something long term? Like, I want to make
Right.
my career not, I don't want to be a reality star my entire life, but I want to be in this, what we'll call this entertainment industry in some capacity. So, what's your approach? Coming out, still knowing we're now 6 months into the pandemic, the world really hasn't opened up yet.
Yeah.
You're home now, you're adjusting back to the real world. But what's your approach at that point in time professionally?
It was wild because the first time I was able to come out and connect with so many people. I had flown all over the place. I had a huge meet and greet ultimately at one of the venues right here in New Jersey called I Play America. And there were at least over 1,000 people in this venue, which was wild for me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think I paid
Yeah.
2 of those as my
Yeah.
2 daughters, I believe, were there.
Yeah. So that's actually the first time I had met you and your daughters, which is so wild as the time passed, because we look at the photos. We always joke about this. I look at the photos of Chelsea and Gabby, and they're babies.
Yeah.
And now they're growing into women. Like, Chelsea is in college, Gabby is a senior in high school, and they're just way more mature than the time that I met them.
Yeah.
I think it's like almost 7 years now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I wanted to try the second time to do what I did the first time, because I also felt like the first time I was just a likable character on the show.
Mhm.
Whereas the second time now I was like a strategic character on the show,
Mhm.
because the gameplay that I had on the second season of All Stars was completely different than the first one. The only problem with that is now I'm coming out, because when I left for the show in New Jersey, it seemed like the world was opening back up. And it seemed like I could maybe do something similar to the first time, where there's monetization that's being able to be made after the first time, with these meet and greets, with meeting people, with traveling, with doing these different events. And the second time I came out, and actually what had happened during the pandemic is we reverted backwards. So I was gone for 3 months, where I thought, oh man, the world's going to be opening back up. I'm going to be gone for these 3 months, and now I'm going to be able to come back out to the real world, and it's going to be pretty normal. And it was not. It was ultimately come out to everything had shut back down again. And so it was very difficult. And I was put in a situation now where it was like, okay, I have to pivot. I can't do the same thing that I did the first time.
Mhm.
It's really tough. So that's what ultimately got me into an avenue of streaming, live streaming, podcasting. And so that to me was really interesting, because again, podcasting and streaming is more of a slow burn, where these other meet and greets, I can go and I can make a good chunk of change just showing up for 2.5, 3 hours. Whereas on a stream and podcasting, it's not as easy to do that. So I had to really pivot and try to find a different way to connect with people without being able to interact with them in person, which is always difficult, because I'm more of a person to person
Mhm.
interact. I like interacting with people in person, and it's tough when you're doing it online, because you don't have that same feel. You don't get to see someone in person.
Well, I think what you said is perfect, and it's not just for you, but it's for anyone in the business world. When you run a business or you're doing anything, you're going to hit a roadblock,
Yeah.
and pivots are key. And saying, all right, this is my plan. All right, the pandemic screwed up a lot of businesses. So for
Yeah.
you, calling your personality and your brand, for lack of a better word, your business,
Yeah.
you weren't able to promote that brand the same way.
Right. As a person, as a TV personality, because that's how I like to describe myself, because it's like I'm a TV personality. People see me on television, then I'm gone. The problem with Big Brother is that it is not a recurring thing that I can just go back to.
Sure.
I can't just go back the next season. So every year that Big Brother is streaming, my brand is now replaced with a new brand, a new personality, a new TV personality. And so it's very difficult, because you have to try to do as much as you possibly can in that first year
Mhm.
to really set yourself up for the following years, because every year there's a new personality. There's people that are always like supporting you and always there for you, but there's a new personality that's a fresher face, that's a newer face that plays the game. And so it's tough to continue that, because my business ultimately is myself. I'm my own business. And so you have to be able to adjust and find ways to still connect with people, grow your brand, grow your business, and be able to create monetization through that. Because it becomes very difficult if you come out and you think, because you're a TV personality, everything is going to be handed to you,
Yeah.
because that is just simply not the case. I think that's a big misconception that a lot of people have. They're like, oh, you went on TV, your life is totally different. That's not the case for, I would say, a majority of the people. Majority of the people that go on these shows, they go back to their jobs. It's not easy to then bet on yourself and go, you know what, I'm going to go this route. I'm going to go the entrepreneurial route, which has its benefits, but it also has the added stress and the negatives to it, where I don't know where my next paycheck's coming from. I don't know how I'm going to make money from week to week. I don't have this paycheck that I'm like, all right, I'm doing this job and this is the amount that I'm going to get in a week or 2 weeks, depending on how your pay structure is. And so it's difficult hurdle to get over, not only through the show, but then after the show, if you
Yeah.
want to go that route.
Right. So you're betting
So,
on yourself, and then
yeah,
sometimes business owners bet on themselves, and that
correct.
ultimately for a lot of people to be a lifetime employee, and there's nothing wrong with that. Have
No,
the
absolutely not.
security of a 9 to 5 job, or the people who
Absolutely.
bet on themselves, take risks, leave a company to open a new company or things like that, and more of an entrepreneurial, spirit, which
Yeah.
is clearly what you have. So I want to talk about two things along those lines. I think there's two aspects I think that I know with you that you're kind of utilizing for yourself.
Yeah.
One is social media, and
Yeah.
we'll get to the podcast in a second. Your podcast, because I want you to
Right.
be able to promote that, number one, and also I think it's what's going really well for you right now. But talk about, especially during the COVID days, how you've utilized social media, in
Okay.
terms of keeping your brand out there, keeping relevant with your fans, getting you exposure potentially for other gigs, and things like that. And quite honestly, like I know you're on this stream called Twitch. It's an app called
Yeah.
Twitch, which quite honestly I don't know a lot about. But
Right.
how was that, without getting into specifics? How are you monetized in any way for any of your social media, or is it
Mhm.
really doing it to help you continue to build your brand?
Yeah, so there's a few things with social media. There are brand deals, and that really is dependent on how engaging your audience is with you. So I come off Big Brother the first time. I have a extremely large social media following, almost a half a million followers, where you have no idea what you're doing with that. Like what is that? What benefits does that bring me? What can I do with this? How am I'm a regular person. 3 months go by, I go on this TV show. I'm still the same person, but now I have this huge following of people that want to hear from me. People want to see what I'm doing day to day. People want to know what's going on in the life because they just watched me for 3 months and now they still want a piece of that moving forward.
Mhm.
So social media is a great platform to stay interactive with your following. And then with that, with the following that you're engaging with and interacting with, there's different ways like brand deals. A brand may see my page and say, okay, because we know how advertisement goes. Advertisement and marketing is I put this amount of money into this show because I know this show is getting this many eyes on it.
Mhm.
Now they've dialed it down to social media where it's like, okay, this page gets this many eyes on it. So I now want to do a deal with this specific influencer. I'm going to pay them this amount of money. And then this is how many eyes it's going to get to. So there's that way to monetize. I never really did a great job with that because for me, social media was very interesting. I love experiencing things in the moment and I love interacting with people in the moment. And the first thing that I'm not thinking of doing is pulling out my phone to record it because then
Mhm.
I don't feel like I'm really experiencing it. I'm feeling like I'm seeing it through the lens of my phone.
Yeah.
And I never liked that. So the first time I did a very poor job of engaging with my audience, engaging with the people that were following me, and really trying to find benefits through that. Other people have done a great job of it. One of the biggest examples is Nicole Franzel, who I was on with 16 and who I was on Big Brother All Stars. She found a career in her social media.
Right.
She was making a living and making a very good living on brand deals, interacting with her social media audience, getting different brand deals, putting that out there. And so, but that is very, very difficult. And not a lot of people are able to do it properly because people think like, oh, I just want to get the product and I want to sell it. But what people don't understand is that your followers don't care about a product, they care about you.
Right.
And
Sure.
so if you're just selling stuff to them, they ultimately know what's happening. They know, okay, they're trying to sell this to me because they're getting paid. I don't have any benefits of this. So like, I don't really like that kind of content.
Sure.
And so it's very difficult because you want to try to monetize it because you have a following. But if you don't do it the proper way, it's
Yeah.
not sustainable. You can get a deal, you can make good money off of a deal, but that's one deal. How do you make that sustainable? How are you making that month to month? How are you making that your yearly income? And so I didn't do a great job of that the first time. And that's something that I wanted to try to do the second time. I'm not great with my phone. I'm not great with recording content. So I found my way of doing that would be interacting on these streams like Twitch, on YouTube, putting out content that way where I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm not asking you to buy anything. I'm asking you to just interact with me and interact with me in a way where now you get to get the fill. I get to enjoy interacting with you. And there's different ways that you make money on that. Like Twitch, there's a subscription base where people pay monthly and then they get like different added perks. That's something that you have to grow. It's like, because people could subscribe to you 1 month and then be like, I don't even understand why I'm subscribing to you. I'm unsubscribing. Now that money goes out your pocket and probably somewhere else. So sustaining it is consistency, in my opinion. You have to be consistent. Like, I think if you talk to anybody in business, anybody that has had success, their success comes through consistency and being there with people on a day-to-day basis. Success in your business is always through consistency. And so that's really the best way to try to find navigation through this crazy social media brand that you're trying to build, is you have to be consistent. Because if you're not doing something every day and a person wants a fix of it, they'll go find somebody else that's doing it every single day.
So funny you mentioned about living in the moment and not being on your phone to record. Just this morning I'm reading the paper online, the New York Post, and Aaron Judge, Yankees hit a big home run last night, his 60th.
Yes.
And if you look at the photo of him coming to home plate and you look at everyone in the crowd, everyone's holding up their phone. No one is living the moment. They're staring at their phone to make sure they're getting the video. And you're there for that moment, but you're right. You're kind of missing the moment because you want to be able to post about the moment,
right?
Or send it to your friends. So it's definitely an interesting balance, which you never would have saw that before, right. And so forth. But in addition to you doing that yourself, you kind of put a team around you. You have agents, right, or business managers, whatever you want to call them, that are out there helping you secure deals. And right, not to go through your full bio, but you've been in a few films. Mm-hmm. You've been in a TV show for a couple seasons on on a paid subscription network, I believe.
Yeah.
And so forth. And so, how did you find the right person for you? I guess obviously I work with you on the on the financial side. How did you, or what was your approach to building your team? Because obviously you're kind of doing a little bit blind faith, because you gotta, like, how do you know in your life, how do you know who you can trust and really has your best interests at heart?
To be honest, it's trial and error, right? When I first came off of Big Brother on season 16, there were a lot of people that said, hey, we can help you. We can help do this for you. We can offer you this. We can get you into this. We can do this for you. And then ultimately you start working with that person and you come to realize, and it takes time.
Yeah.
Because everything sounds great initially. And then the only thing you can do is experience something to really know, and then go based off of that and your own personal judgment. So for me, it was trial and error after 16. I went with an agency that I thought was going to be this great situation. Found out after a period of time, like, I don't know that this is the greatest fit for me. I don't know that they are personally looking out for me. I know that they want the benefits of something that I could possibly do, but are they working as hard as I'm trying to work behind the scenes to get me out there? So that's really difficult. And it's really difficult because when you first come off and you have all this notoriety, a lot of people want a piece of the pie. Mm-hmm. And so you have to ultimately try to find the right people. The thing with you that was so great was, like, I was getting into real estate, and we had never, it's like, at the meet and greet, it's like, I want to tell you, Mike, that you really stood out for me. You were the guy. I saw you.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I love this guy and I'm going to be working with him in the future.
Yeah.
But it's just when people connect, like, I like connecting with people on a human level. And for me and you, the greatest connection for me was I was starting a brand new venture in my life, and it was going into real estate. Mm-hmm. And you had reached out and was like, hey, listen, you had done this for me. The way that you interacted with my kids was amazing, and I appreciated it so much. And so I want to try to help you in any way in real estate. And I was like, that's great. I'm starting a new venture. And we met and we sat down and everything was very genuine. Mm-hmm. And for me, that comes with maturity, because a lot of times when you're young, you're very, you can be influenced by anybody that just offers you something good. Yeah. You didn't really offer me anything. You were like, I just want to help. I just want to help in any way because you're a good guy and I want to help a good guy. And that to me connected with me on such a personal level that our relationship now has grown substantially. Like, you don't feel like somebody that's just a business person. You're like one of my friends. You're somebody that I want to seek advice from if I need advice, because I trust what you tell me. Mm-hmm. I don't think that you have any hidden benefits or you have any personal benefits to any advice you give me. You just are giving me advice. And that takes time, right? That takes maturity. It took me going through what I went through after the first time, where I meet people all the time now. And I'm like, I need nothing this is not going to bring any benefit to me because
Right.
they're just trying to come and
They're trying to
gain
benefit.
benefits through me.
Yeah.
And so, but that comes with trial and error, comes with maturity, and it comes with different experiences, really. And you have to go through them because it's not easy to really know what's going to happen in an instant.
Yeah. And you're going through, obviously at this point in your life, you're not at a crossroads, but obviously your, personal life, at some point in time, I'm sure you're going to want to get married. At some
Right.
point in life, I'm sure you're going to have kids. And that'll involve, maybe you're moving to a bigger house and things like
Right.
that, and so forth. And, I don't think what people realize, like you made the point before, you want $500,000, which is great. I think we'll all take it. But you
Yeah.
there where they check for $500,000. There's this thing called taxes,
Yeah.
and it's California taxes because that's where the show filmed, and it's federal taxes. So you leave with, still
Right.
a nice savings, but nothing you can say, okay, I can now live on for the rest of my life by any stretch.
Correct.
So it gives you security to maybe chase your dreams here a little bit. So it
Right.
gives you a little protection to do that. But by no means is it now I can just sit back and twiddle my thumbs.
No, because you come with the realization of, okay, I made this amount of money. And if I'm not making that amount of money every single year, that amount that I made
Yep.
continues to decrease when you look at the average of what I've made. Like,
Sure.
in that year,
Mhm.
what I made for the last 2 years was insane. But then if you're not making $500,000 a year, the amount that you've made over the last 5 years decreases every year.
Yeah.
So you have to find a way where it's like, okay, I can't live off of this. And I made a huge mistake the first time when I came off. I thought I was like, oh man, I made this money. And then I was making a ton of money doing these different meet and greets. And I was like, wow, this is great. And I'm going to fly out here. I'm going to go do this in New York City this weekend. I don't have to worry about it because I'm making this money. And then all of a sudden, a year goes by and now there's a new season of Big Brother. And I'm not doing all meet and greets. I'm not making that amount of money every year. And it's like, oh, wow, I just burnt through the money last year thinking, oh, this is going to be every single year. And it's not. And I burnt through, and then you have your school loans. Like I didn't go to school for free.
Yeah.
So I have school loans. So I was like, wow, I have these payments every single month. I have a car payment every month. I have all this stuff that I need to pay. And guess what? That decreases the amount of money if you're just sitting on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I made that mistake the first time, and I did not want to make that mistake the second time. And I was very,
the first time.
what's that?
You know why you made the mistake the first time, don't you?
I didn't have I wasn't advised properly.
That's right. That's it.
Exactly.
But that's,
And you can take that
I
advice.
joke because you didn't know me, but at the same point, you're gonna get someone. You can have someone to say to you, "Hey, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Enjoy a little bit, but you also got to kind of,
Well,
plan.
we've had those frank conversations too, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
Like, you handle a lot of stuff for me, and you've said things to me that, maybe somebody else doesn't feel comfortable with, but you're somebody that's supposed to be advising me
Yeah.
in the right direction. And I appreciate that because it's like, it holds you accountable. And if you're not held accountable by anybody, that's when you can go off the rails.
Yeah. And ultimately, it's your responsibility. I can make a
Yeah.
suggestion to you, and it's your decision. So I can say to you, "Hey, do this, do this, do this. Don't do this. Don't." It's not
Right.
so much also do this. Sometimes it's don't do this.
Right.
It's sometimes stopping you. And again, ultimately, anyone could advise you, whether it's me on the financial side, it's your agent on a
Right.
project. Now, I know I won't get into specifics because I don't know what can be discussed. I know you've turned down some projects,
Mhm.
and maybe your agent said to do it because your agent wanted, that's more money coming in for you, more money coming in, but
Yeah.
you said no because it just didn't feel right for you, and it wasn't the right thing at the right time.
Well, it was
And
the advice of people that I trusted. I can talk about it. I've turned down a ton of shows. I turned down The Amazing Race twice.
Mhm.
I turned down The Challenge.
Mhm.
And these are different things that I look back on, and I turned them down based off the advice that I was getting from my management. Hey, you want to be an actor? Reality TV doesn't help you. You want to be an actor? Going on this show in reality isn't going to benefit you
right.
moving forward. And I don't know if that was the right advice because I wasn't getting any acting gigs at the time. And these were different ways that I could have been making money and also building up my brand a little bit more on different shows. And so I don't know if that advice, I can look back on it right now and say, I think that was terrible advice back then.
Mhm.
But I was seeking the advice from my team. I
Mhm.
didn't want to go outside of the direction of the advice I was being told. And I don't know that that was the biggest benefit because I see myself now and it's like, I wonder if I would have done that then, would I have been in a different situation? I got blessed with going back on Big Brother, but it's like I was being written off almost as a TV personality in the reality world because they were like, oh, he keeps saying no. So let's go to people that are going to say yes.
Yeah.
So it is really important to surround yourself with the proper team that is looking. And the advice that they were giving me at the time might have been the right advice, and they will probably stand behind it. But then, even those people in that time, a couple of years later, I was seeing them work with other people and pushing them in other directions. I was like, why did I get that advice back then?
Right.
Well,
Sure.
so
I
it's
think
really
we
tough.
for a few minutes because I don't want to keep you too much longer. We got to keep this short. So I
Yeah,
want to talk about your current podcast right now. I think it's probably one of the projects you're working on. I think that you're probably one of the things you're most excited about.
yeah,
So it's the Winner Circle. It's on
yeah,
YouTube. It's co-hosted by you and Derek.
yep,
Derek, for those of you who don't know, was the person that beat Cody in Big Brother 16 Final
yep,
Two. They worked together the entire season, came out, were best buds in the house, came out best buds, outside the house, continued a relationship, and so forth. And Derek's another person who kind of leveraged a career in law enforcement. And now he does other TV shows and podcasts, I believe, related to crime situations.
correct.
But
Yep,
the two of you come together, and I want you to talk about your podcast a little bit. But I think the amazing thing is, in a little over a year, you've built your YouTube subscriptions from
yeah,
0 to 1. I think now you're probably in the mid 30s
yeah,
thousand of subscribers.
yeah,
Kind of
yeah.
talk to us about that. What your hopes are for that going forward, and how do you build that brand, and how do you get that to where it is right now, and to keep it going. So a year from now, we're not at 30 something, we're at 60, 70, 80.
Right, right. So it goes back to what I said earlier, and it's just consistency because people come to our channel. The channel started as just recapping Big Brother because that's a perfect thing for the two of us. Because he was on Big Brother once, I was on Big Brother twice. We've both won the show, so now there's people that really enjoyed how we played the game and want to hear our opinion because you have two people that had a lot of success. Derek was never nominated. I was never nominated. Derek won 7-2 against me. I won 9-0. So we're two people that have not only played the game, but we played the game pretty well. And so we started it as we just want to cover Big Brother. The problem with that is that Big Brother's only on 3 months out of the year. So again, it comes to that, situation I was talking about where, okay, yeah, we can do great for 3 months, but how do we do great for 12? How do we do great for 12 months for the next 5 years?
Yeah.
Because that's the goal ultimately. And it just comes with consistency and more content. The more content you put out, the more views you get, the more people are going to be like, oh, I like this. I'm going to be able to go to this every morning or every other morning on the weekends. And so we've been trying to find different ways to grow it. And one of the ways that we did this season was we brought on Tiffany Mitchell, which was America's favorite on Big Brother 23, to cover the live feeds because we're covering the live shows and the live feeds that are on 24/7. We wanted to bring her in to cover that so that she can see so that people can see what else is going on. What are they seeing on the feeds that we're missing on the live show? So now we went from putting out 1 to 2 videos a week to 4 videos a week, which is great because now people get to come to our channel more.
Yeah.
Now we're trying to figure out ways. We have meetings all the time about how are we going to continue this after Big Brother's over? How are we going to make sure this is working after the show is over? So
you're thinking conversations like pop culture, relevant current events. Obviously, you don't want to get into, talk about, the nation's deficit, or I'm sure getting too political, but are you kind of
right.
trying to, leverage it into other areas?
Yeah. So it's tough because what happens is Derek and I have done trial and error, right? We had the show last year. We came out and we were like, okay, what are we going to do now? We're going to cover Survivor. Survivor's on once a week. Let's put out a episode on like in the news, what's going on in the news, different pop culture things, different things of that sort. And it becomes difficult because it's, you go based off of what works. And if your views are good, then you continue doing it. If your views aren't good, then you can tell there's people that that's not really what they're into.
Sure.
And so it's difficult. And, Derek has, a podcast in the true crime. The true crime avenue is something that I think a lot of people just like listening to in their pastime. It's what people like watching, these different shows these scripted shows that are out there like Law and Order that are ultimately taking things that have happened and turning it into scripted. And these are shows that have done great for years and years. And even after they stop filming, because their reruns do really well. So that's something that I'm trying to look into, the true crime avenue, and it's just also gauging your audience. Like I put out something and wanted to put something out to my audience to see, what are you into? What would you like hearing me talk about? Would it be pop culture? Would it be true crime? Would it be conspiracy? Would it be other? Because I don't want to go near politics. Politics to me is way too polarizing, especially in the day and age that we live in. And I don't like it because I think it's gone in a very negative way. It's not, oh, let's have a conversation. It's no, I feel this way. I hate you for feeling how you feel. And I don't like that. And so I want to keep it in different avenues that people, what's something that people like listening to? People like listening to us talk about Big Brother. They may not always agree, but they can appreciate or respect it and maybe give a difference of opinion.
Yeah, I've told you offline when I don't agree with what you're saying. And we don't take
we had the conversation yesterday.
Discussions. Yeah, we debated some things yesterday I didn't agree with.
Yeah. And so it's a matter of finding what people want to hear. And that's the struggle, because that's the tough part about creating content. What do people want to hear? What are people wanting to consume? What makes them feel good? What makes them listen to it for an hour or 30 minutes on their way to work, 30 minutes on their way back? Are they listening to it during their work day? And it's just a lot of it, again, trial and error, but it's staying consistent. Like if you're trial and error and it doesn't work and you're like, oh, well, I'm done. That's the only way to guarantee you're never going to have success. If you quit at something, you're not having success at it. And so
it's called the Winner Circle.
Yep.
It's on YouTube. You can go to YouTube. What do? You just click and subscribe. Is that?
So you can listen to it on YouTube. That's where we do the video. You see the interactive. It's similar to this. I do a lot of the editing for it. So, you'll see us both at one. There's a 2-shot, then there's maybe a single if I'm going through a thought. So it's a little more visual. And I think some people like that. Some people watch it on their television almost as all right, well, this is an hour episode of a show. Instead of watching some scripted show, I'm going to pop on the Winner Circle YouTube and I'm going to watch it because I want to see how the two interact with each other. I want to see their facial expressions. Some people listen on audio. When you can listen on Spotify, you can listen on Apple Podcasts, you can listen on iHeartRadio. It's on all podcast platforms. Some people do both. They listen and then they want to watch. So there's different ways to do it. So if you want to find us, we are the Winner Circle. And if you want to see anything, we have our Instagram, which is Winner Circle Cast, at Winner Circle Cast. And that's when you'll see if a new episode's up, and then you can see the link, which makes it a little easier for you.
Perfect. And then last question, anything going on in the future that you can tell us about that you're doing?
There is something that I cannot tell you about. But it's, a new project that it was a project. And as I said earlier, I've turned down a lot of different things. And this one just kind of spoke to me in a way where I was like, ooh, I really, really like it. So it's safe to say
we'll see you back on our TVs sometime in the next few months?
It's safe to say that you will probably see me back depending on if the show, is something you're interested in. But I think it's going to be an incredible show. It was an incredible opportunity for me. I'm very grateful for these opportunities that come my way. And I was able to go on it. And I think it's going to be very interesting. It's very intense. The whole show is extremely intense. The ending is even more wild than I think a lot of people would expect.
Plus, you got to travel to a nice place.
I got to travel. I'm not going to talk about where I had to travel because they may give something away, but I got to experience, for me, a lot of things in my life are experiences. Like how am I going to be able to describe this to my kids? What stories am I going to be able to tell my kids? And for me, a lot of things come through experiences. And so I loved this experience. It was such an incredible experience. And so I'm extremely excited for people to get to view it.
Good. Cody, I appreciate you being my first on this. It's always good to talk to you. And, I wish you nothing but the best. And I know we'll be talking soon.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I appreciate you having me on.
All right. Have a great day. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Adeptus On Air. If you like this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. If you have a question related to this episode or have a request for what you would like to hear, please email us at marketing@adeptuscpas.com. You can also find us at adeptuscpas.com online or follow us at Adeptus on social media. The views and opinions by the podcast speakers and guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of Adeptus. This podcast provides general information only and is not intended to constitute advice.